It never ceases to amaze me the fabulous stories, the success stories that we here at the Real Agents of Change hear from our good friends over at Realty Gift Fund. We are the real estate team. We are the charitable real estate division that your nonprofit or your real estate company can come to when you have a donation, especially even those that are a little hairy and scary. Bruce, what's our story about today?
We are going to talk about a hairy one, okay? And it should be said, by the way, you've often said that the average donation, which comes from IRS statistics, by the way, that the average residential donation is about $550,000. The average commercial property donation is about $900,000. Okay, we like to use the residential number because it's just, something people understand a little bit easier. But at Realty Gift Fund, one of the ways that we have made a mark with all of our nonprofit friends is we are willing to look at the large deals and we're willing to look at the small deals because it's important to sometimes just give a check for $25,000 to a nonprofit for whom that amount of money makes a lot of difference. So we took a call from a financial advisor in the Tucson area earlier this year, had a client, a doctor, who had owned a rental home for about 12 years, and it had been rented the entire time, and it was currently rented at the time that he called us. And in our initial phone call, which we do right away, we have a call with the financial advisor who introduces us to the donor. We have a call with the financial advisor and the donor and us, so we can all get to know each other and the donor can get comfort with who we are, what we do, and ask all sorts of questions. And in this case, he brought his attorney onto the call to allow the attorney to ask a lot of questions. And we really favor that. We want everyone to be completely comfortable with what the process is. One thing that we do at Realty Gift Fund, we are very transparent about how the process works. And as soon as we have that initial call, we create what we call a net gift estimate, which says, if these things you have said are true, we have gone out and we have looked at what the transfer fees are going to be in your county and what the title fees are going to be in your location and what the brokerage fees are going to be in your location for this kind of property. And here's what we predict the outcome to be. And so we did that. This gentleman had a $200,000 home, very small, modest home. And a lot of larger nonprofits would never deal with a $200,000 property. Their minimum is much, much higher than that. But we said, sure, we'll do this for you. And we went under contract. As soon as we did, we hired a broker and we engaged a title company. That's our very first step when we go under contract. The broker was having difficulty getting access to the property to help us really dig deep as to what kind of property is this? What does it look like? Is it truly a $200,000 property? And what is the condition of the property? Sometimes people are right. Yes, this is a $200,000 property, but only if you fix the kitchen or repair the roof. Lots of people sort of glance over these little details that we have to know perfectly when we go through the process. Because it was a rented property, there was a property manager. And it turned out that the reason our broker couldn't get access to the property was the property manager was hiding the key. And we couldn't figure out why. We've never had that problem with the property manager. Finally, we got in. And this was a 900 square foot home, and 11 people were living in the home.
Wow.
There were 5 people living in one room. The back windows had all been boarded up, broken and boarded up. And there was an auxiliary building on the property that had been built clearly with no permit. So all of a sudden we thought, wow, we don't know if this is 200,000, but what we do know is that this is a strange property. How are we going to sell this to somebody who's going to move into the house? How are we going to sell this to somebody who is going to remove 11 people from the house in order to rent it to a single couple, or, something that seems more appropriate, right?
Or how are you even going to show the property?
How are you going to show the
that
property?
Many people, and who would want to look at it under those circumstances?
How are you going to show the property? These are all the things that haunt nonprofits. When we first started Realty Gift Fund, we went out on a 2.5-year mission before we did to find out why nonprofits weren't accepting gifts of real estate. And the common comment that we got from these nonprofits was, we took a gift of real estate once and we will never do it again. Mm-hmm. And this is why. They ended up with properties like this. But we put our heads down and we considered what to do. And we had the option of perhaps trying to evict 11 people from the house, fix the property up, which would have meant going to the county and getting a permit and revealing all of the unpermitted things that had been built on the property. And it became clear to us that that was not the right path to take. And then it became clear to us this was not a $200,000 property. So we called our donor, and we revealed to him what we thought he probably already knew about the property. And what became true, he didn't know a thing about this property. He had owned it for 12 years and had never been there. He had left it to his property manager to take care of these things. And the property manager was the one who was involved in this process the whole time without revealing any of the secrets to his client. So we have this heart-to-heart with our donor. And along the way, we had received an offer, unsolicited, without the effort of our broker. Someone just walked into the house, probably referred to or allowed access by the property manager. And he said, look, I'll write you a check for $145,000. I'll close in 10 days, and and it'll be all cash. Just take my check. I'll buy this property. I do this kind of work. So by this time, we really are in control of this house, not our donor. But we do want our donor to understand this is really what you own, not what you thought you owned.
Was there an appraisal that had been done at this point?
The appraisal hadn't been done. Sometimes, in this day and age, appraisals take a long time. And so the appraisal was still underway. The donor's process was over here. We were in control of the house. Our sale process was over here. They were kind of going on at the same time. And it became clear to us that we had to find a buyer to take this in order to satisfy everybody who was involved. And we needed to be honest about it. We got a third-party person who was experienced at these things and lived in the Tucson market to come together to go see the house and make his own evaluation and advise us outside of the work our broker had done. And he said, yes, in fact, this is about $135,000 home. If you've got a $145,000 offer, you've got an offer you probably should take, because there's just too much heavy lifting to do it any other way. And everyone agreed. And in 15 days, we did close with that buyer, and we created, and it was without the broker, by the way. The broker said, I'm out. I don't want to do this work. I don't want to be involved in this home. But this buyer had come without a broker, so we saved on the fees. We actually made the buyer pay all the closing costs so that we would net $145,000. We're just trying to optimize the outcome for the donor advised fund. And we did close in 15, 20 days. The whole process, though, took 120 days. I mean, this was an aggravating, excruciatingly slow process of learning what was going on at this property. And then how do we settle on what's the right exit strategy and how do we pull that off? But we just stuck with it. And guess what? We did create $145,000 for the nonprofit world. And that's not a small amount of money, even though it's one of the smallest deals we've ever done.
Well, just goes to show Realty Gift Fund does deals anywhere in the country and in the world for that matter, and under any circumstances. We say that you say that you won't take a property that's not marketable, but it can be marketable under the right circumstances with the right people, and the right guy came along and took that one off your hands. So any last thoughts about this one before we bring to a close?
Well, I think you make a really good point. I mean, this is a property that no nonprofit would have taken. And if a nonprofit had come to me, which they do from time to time, they come to me and say, we're going to do this ourselves, but can you help us evaluate this? Are we doing the right thing? And we're happy to help the nonprofit world in any way we can. We would have said, don't take this. It's not what you do. You know, what you do is draw donors close to your cause, send out birthday cards, greetings, have meetings. You know, you're trying to run your nonprofit organization. You are not real estate people. You have no business doing this. But this was a property that maybe even we shouldn't have taken, but we just felt comfortable with our ability to manage weird processes. And we just saw a way to maneuver through the trees to get out of it for a realistic conclusion. And when we were done, we had to say, look, we've got 145 grand on the table. That was not a bad outcome. So, you know, I would say that without a real estate professional, that deal would never have helped. Never have helped.
Once again, friends, you're hearing about $145,000 that went into a donor advised fund, which is the favorite nonprofit of financial advisors from the perspective of that is a fund that they can manage and that they can earn fees on, and that the reason it's created is so that the donor can advise funds out of that fund to nonprofits as they see fit for years and years to come. So donor advised funds are a very popular way of turning that hard asset into liquid assets that can be held in a fund until the donor decides who's going to get the proceeds. So great story. Once again, Bruce, thank you everyone for watching the Real Agents of Change interview series, where we love to celebrate and honor and acknowledge real agents of change in the world. And there is no better real agent of change than the specialized nonprofits, especially our favorite Realty Gift Fund. See you on the next show, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Cammie.